Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Kevin Gregg Show. I'm Kevin Gregg. Glad to have you here. This is actually the second version of this show. Yeah, it's sort of an experiment. The reason I'm doing this show is for a number of reasons. I'm sort of practicing something that the writer Jeff Goins talks about, and so does Michael Hyatt, which is about practicing in public. When you're doing art or creating anything, it's awesome to be able to do something that other people can see, and it's also about trying to make sure that I'm kind of getting it right. Uh, yeah, wow, this is crazy. So I'm doing this live. Let me. Here's the interesting thing. As I'm doing this, I'm going to be referring to a couple of notes I made up because as I said before, this is the second time that I've done the Kevin Gregg show. Years ago, back in 2009, I actually launched a version of this that specifically focused on acting, directing, all that stuff. I would interview people. Um, yeah, this show it's a little bit different. I do Your Creative Journey podcast with Paul Carganell. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm a writer, director, producer. I've worked over 25 years in the entertainment industry. I've done national commercials. I worked with the Disneyland Resort. I'm an Ovation LA Awards winner, also LA Weekly Theater Award winner, and a member of the Disneyland Entertainment Hall of Fame. Um, Over on Your Creative Journey, that's when I work with my co-host Paul Carganilla. We usually talk about things to get your creative work done. We interview other actors, writers, all that stuff. I wanted to start the show because specifically, um, there's a different direction that I want to take this show. Um, Usually, when I am working on something, I'm one of those guys that works on. When I'm trying to learn something new, I usually learn it by talking about it, sometimes even teaching about it as I'm learning. Um, yeah, I'm a little bit of a crossroads for myself. Not even a crossroads. I should say that I'm heading into like a new chunk of my life. Um, and the inspiration for this show, it actually goes all the way back to the beginning of the COVID season that happened in March of 2020. Around March of 2020, April 2020, I was involved in a company that they would do like these sort of very generic, general guided meditations just for people to kind of chill out. And it was great. It was helpful. But over time, I was like thinking, I want to do something that specifically ties in with my faith. I'm a Christian Catholic, and I started working with some other guys I knew where I started doing this men's prayer group that I do about three times a week on Zoom and showing up on a regular basis. And boy, that just meant a lot to me. So doing that and having that structure, I thought, there's stuff that I don't want to talk about specifically on Your Creative Journey that I thought, let me just bring it back here. Let's do another version of the Kevin Gregg show. Um, and I think that there's, I'm sort of stalling as I try to pull up my documents for this. Listen, you're going to see me practicing in public as I do this. I'm not going to get this thing right. And I think that a huge thing for me is about being transparent, working through this stuff. Gosh, there's so many times I've talked about this on other shows and other forums where um, whenever I'm seeing other people that just seem to have it so polished and correct and perfect, um, it drives me nuts, right? It doesn't pull back the curtain so you get to see a little bit of what's going on. What I'm doing right now is I am talking to you guys, so I'm actually pulling up a document that I had, um, which sort of talks about what the what the driving factor is for this show. Oh gosh, there's one other thing that I forgot to do during all this. That's okay. I'm learning as I go. I should be like really doing this. Here's what I'm planning to do with the show. Number one, this show is going to feature in depth conversations that's going to help listeners to reflect, rebuild, reinvigorate, and reinvent their lives. It's going to be ranging in topics from Christianity, business, history, and art. This show is going to help you strive towards that which God has created you for. So, as much as I focus on the stuff that's on Your Creative Journey that focuses a lot on the art and creativity, um, this is a little bit of a different one that I'm doing. Um, anyway, it's about unpacking some stuff for myself. I was thinking about this. I might be able to share this with you guys if I can. My hope is that I'm going to be doing this show about 3 times a week. For the most part, it's going to be live interactions. As I get more comfortable with this and doing this, I hope to start interacting with you guys in the chat, um, and to be able to take some of your questions as we work through some stuff. Um, what's on top of mind this morning? Uh, I think part of the reason I also wanted to do this show, there's been something that I've been working on for the last, I'm going to honestly say it's been about the last 6 or 7 years, right? That's included like work in therapy groups, recovery groups, all of this other stuff. Um, One of the biggest things I've had a problem with throughout my life is trying to be, uh, as the Apostle Paul would talk. It's sort of the flipped version of what the Apostle Paul talks about. The Apostle Paul in the New Testament talks about being all things to all people in a good way, right? Let me unpack this. The Apostle Paul had a very unique set of talents, which was the fact that as he was going out and spreading the news about Jesus Christ and the gospel, um, he was a tent maker, but he also had the knack for being able to interact with people in different towns or villages. And he had the ability to sort of not make himself a chameleon, but to be able to like blend in and speak the language with the people and to go back and forth with them. And that way he was able to like infuse the message of the gospel and Christianity. Perfect example of this is his preaching that he gave on Mars Hill. Um, where here he is surrounded by a whole bunch of statues of like different gods, and there's one statue that's up there that says, "Here's the unknown God," um, and that's the way that Paul used as a way in to talk about God, Christianity, and just saying, this unknown God that you're talking about, this is literally it. This is the creator of the universe. Um, and I do want to say this as I'm doing this show. I'm by no means an expert on this. I'm trying to figure this out as I go. Yeah. So my hope is that as you're seeing me kind of go through this, that maybe you can identify with it. Maybe there's stuff that you want to learn, and we can do it together. Um, Gosh, what was my point with all that? So Paul was very good at being all things to all people in a good way. It was his talent. It was his skill. I have fought this myself for many years in sort of a negative inverse way. Uh, I deal with people pleasing issues like a lot. Like I want people to like me, just like me, like me, like me. And as a result of that, over the years, I've been like different versions of myself to different people, right? I'd be one way at school with my friends, or I'd be one way at home with my family, with my parents, or in front of people at church, or people at baseball or whatever. It was just like I was being all of these different people. And this was the thing that kind of carried on through my life, and it sort of forms like this schism where you can't you just go nuts, right? Like you cannot keep track of like, who am I here, uh and I understand that there's certain boundaries with all of this. I really do. When you start doing things in public life, uh you know the public doesn't get access to everything, and I understand that you have to have certain boundaries or whatever. um, but I think, like, especially over the last several years, I felt like what I really wanted to be was, I wanted to be the same person that I was in my personal life at home with my family, as I was in public, as I would be at church, as I would be with people that I was working with, whatever. Um, and I think that that's another purpose of this show. There's a version of my I always get it down. Like, I used to be 7 Kevins, now I'm down to about 1.7. I'm getting a little bit better at that. But I think that I wanted to have a little bit more transparency about um, my faith, some of my thought process, and some of those things that don't necessarily touch on the creative process. I always try to remain on your creative journey as neutral as possible because I get it. Like I think that people come from all sorts of backgrounds. One of the rules that I have on that show specifically with our guests is that we just don't discuss politics on the show, because that can cause like a hotbed of stuff. You will find during this show, you'll see where I lean on certain things. I'll be transparent about it. I tend to be on the conservative side of things. Um, but this show also isn't about me being one more political commentator. That's not what anybody needs right now, or at least in my opinion. I don't think that I have anything to throw into the game on this. Um, I do feel strongly about having just like uncomfortable conversations about stuff that will come. Uh, I think that we should have that. I think that we should have those conversations about things where we go, "Hey, we're not in the same place on this." Um, but instead of tearing each other down to try and find what those commonalities are, so that maybe I can understand a little bit of what's going on somebody else's side, and hopefully somebody can understand where I'm coming from too. I think for the most part, a lot of people, especially in the country, if not the world, we're kind of looking and striving for the same things. Um, but if we're able to do a little bit of that on this show, that would be amazing. Um, I don't really have a lot more to say today. Today is just about like a test. Like it's a test about like, can I get this stuff up live with Zoom? I was running a few minutes late as I was trying to figure out uh, I was trying to figure out the streaming stuff, and I got to give a big shout out. Like Paul Carganilla has been so instrumental to me. I work with him. If you want to check out his stuff, he's over on VaudacityNetwork.com. But boy, a guy that shows up on a regular basis and just dove into this, and he is somebody that really kind of like relaxed me and said, "Don't be afraid." I'm just grateful for an opportunity and a venue to show up on a regular, consistent basis, to just, again, practice in public doing this. Whether it's having conversations with you, whether it's about forming thoughts I have in my mind. My hope is that with this show, as people are watching it or listening, or, as I have guests that come on, that we're all learning stuff along the way. Um, 48 years old right now, and I'm starting to enter into like a new stage. And there's some stuff that I've had, challenges and difficulty with. There's things like I feel that I haven't been able to crack and fully understand. And I think that this is the opportunity to unpack some of that. So, anyway, regardless, I'm looking forward to having you back. I'll be back on basically Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. For the most part, my plan is to, when we're doing live shows, to have them as sort of like little 20-minute digestible chunks as we do it. As I get more comfortable with this format and the technology, I think you're going to see that sort of evolving. Um, we can have little bits of back and forth. Hit the subscribe button right now on YouTube so you can find out when I'm having these new videos pop up. Uh, I'm just trying to figure it out as I go, man. And doing it live in front of you guys, all right, that's scary, but I'm willing to do that. So, anyway, I'll be back Wednesday morning, 7:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, uh, and we'll continue the conversation. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll be a little less all over the place. Hopefully, I have my outline in front of me and we can start unpacking some stuff. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining me. And I look forward to the conversation. We'll talk to you later. Bye now.